Welcome to another exciting day on my YouTube channel. My name is Asana once again. Please follow me, watch the video, and let's get into it. The movie we're going to talk about today is The Mummy. It's a 1999 movie and it's one of my all-time favorites. Now, the movie begins with Pharaoh Seti, who is seen riding into Egypt. Then we get introduced to Imhotep, who is apparently Pharaoh's high priest and also the keeper of the dead. We are introduced to Anaxanamun. Anaxanamun is Pharaoh's mistress, who no man is allowed to touch her. But unfortunately, Anaxanamun is seen having a forbidden relationship with Imhotep. They were so in love that they were willing to withstand the consequences that will come with their forbidden relationship. Unfortunately, on their part, on one of their encounters, Pharaoh finds out and confronts them. They both decided to unalive Pharaoh in order to keep the relationship a secret. But unfortunately, on their part, they were still caught by Pharaoh's warriors. Anaxanamun decides to save Imhotep, but ends up killing herself just to cover things up. Imhotep, out of broken heart, seeks every ways and means to revive or bring back Anaxanamun to life. He breaks into He took her body to Hamunaptra, a city called the City of the Dead, which was an ancient burial site for the sons of Pharaoh and a resting place for the wealth of Egypt. He also stole the Book of the Dead. Anaxanamun was taken to the underworld and her vital organs placed in five chalices. That is the chalices on the screen. Now, before the ritual was completed, unfortunately on their part, Pharaoh's warriors were able to intercept them, so the ritual couldn't pull through. And then that is when the punishment started. Imhotep's priests were condemned to be mummified alive, while Imhotep himself was condemned to endure the Hundai, an ancient gruesome punishment or a curse. Imhotep was to remain locked up for all eternity, and that anybody who wakes him up is going to bring on the 10 plagues of Egypt with him, and he will be a nightmare to everybody. Pharaoh's warriors have passed on the mantle, and then they formed a group called the Magi, who are tasked to make sure that Imhotep never finds that it has been 3,000 years down the lane, and men have been killing themselves over 3,000 years later, and men are seen killing over themselves over the gold that was believed to exist in Hamunaptra. The Magi group, that was Pharaoh's warriors, over the time have been tasked with keeping the secret of what exists in Hamunaptra because they know the consequences of letting that creature out. Then we are exposed to Okano. Okano was one of the men that was involved in the one of the wars that happened there, and then we see a first glimpse of the evil that actually exists at that place. He was the only one who unfortunately survives that particular war. And then we are introduced to Jonathan, who goes to see his sister Evelyn at her workplace where she works in a library, and then introduces an old artifact to her. She opens it, which apparently she says is a key, and also contains a map of Hamunaptra. Jonathan then takes Evelyn to go and meet the man, according to Jonathan, he stole the key from, who turns out to be Okano. Because part of the map that will lead them to Hamnaptra was partially bent. So they meet Okano, who is now a prisoner that will be hanged very soon. And then he negotiates a deal with them. They get him out. He will take them to Hamunaptra because according to him, that was where he was when he found that particular key. Evie successfully negotiates the freedom of Okano, but with the promise that when they find the gold in Hamunaptra, they'll be giving 25% to the owner of the prison. So then we see Okano, Jonathan, Evie, and then the owner of the prison all board the same ship. Now on the ship, they realize that there is also another group that is coincidentally going to Hamunaptra too, with the eagerness to also find the gold. Evie gets attacked on the ship by one of the Magi groups, but Okano saves her life, and unfortunately the ship is bent. The ship gets bent down, meaning that they now have to go through the desert. Now they purchased camels and then they were on their way. So then we see an attraction happening between Evie and Okano. So they all end up at Hamunaptra. That is the two groups. They end up meeting at Hamunaptra and then they are digging at two different sites. So Evie's group met their first death in the form of the owner of the prison, who unfortunately is eaten alive by an ancient insect, whilst the second group also had their workers' skin bent off by called let's call the second group Benish group, and you will know why. So now at night they were attacked by the Magi, who wants them to leave, that they are giving them 1 day to leave. Benny's group first discovers the Book of the Dead, and then they are warned never to read from that book. And also the five chalices. Before the book was actually opened, Benny advises himself and runs away. They get the five chalices, and then we see that Okano's group has also discovered the mummy. Now they realize that in order to Evie steals the book from the Benish group, the book, sorry, from Benish group, and then she reads from the book, and we hear the roar of the mummy. The mummy has been woken up, and then we see the first plague of Egypt, that is the locust. Locust ascended on them, so they had swamps of locusts after them, and then they ran into the ruins of so they escape into the ruins of Hamunaptra, where the flesh-eating bags also chases them. So out of trying to escape the flesh-eating bags, Evie gets separated from the group, and then we see a first glimpse of them. So the mummy sees Evie, tries to kiss her, and then Okano saves her by shooting the mummy, and then they all run away, thinking that they have killed the mummy. So they come outside and then they meet the Magi group. That is when the Magi group tells them the extent of what they have done and that they have to go and stop the creature from destroying everything. So we see that Benny himself is trapped in Hamunaptra. And because he could speak the creature's language, the creature started using him to track down specifically those who opened the book and then those who took the five chalices. Because according to history, there are those he has to use to regenerate his body. So Benny takes him to the first man he had already started with. That is, he took the man's eyes and tongue. So Kano rushes in there to save him, but unfortunately it was too late for him. They were able to sack the creature using a curse. So they go in for answers, and that is when Evie's boss reveals to her that he's part of the Magi group that are tasked with keeping the creature from seeing the day of light. And that was why he had intentionally bent the map the first time to prevent them from going. It is also revealed to them that Imhotep needs Evie in order to sacrifice her to wake up Anaxana. Okano rushes to go and save the leader of the first group, but unfortunately, it is already too late for him. The creature has already gotten to him. So Okano then rushes to go and save the other two, but unfortunately, it is too late for the third one too. He too, the creature has met him and sucked him. Their whole only savior now will be finding the golden book. They go to look for the golden book, but unfortunately, Imhotep has been able to turn the whole town against them. So, in order to escape, or they escape together, but unfortunately, the last man to fully regenerate him was also gotten over there. So now Imhotep is fully regenerated. They didn't have a choice. Evie had to go with Imhotep, or else he would kill the rest of the people. Imhotep took Evie away, but still went back on their deal and told his people to kill Okano and his men. So Kano, Jonathan, and one of the Magi soldiers were able to escape, but unfortunately, the Evie's boss couldn't make it. So they go to Winston, a retired Navy officer, in order for him to help fly them to Hamunaptra because they believed that was where he was taking Evie to in order to perform the ritual to bring back um his beloved back. Winston agrees and then they get on the airplane. We now see that Imhotep has taken both Evie and Benny back to Hamunaptra. Imhotep uses his power to cause Okano's plane to crash down, where we see that Winston is also no longer alive. Okano and his group finally find the gold book, but unfortunately, we didn't. The Magi soldier seemed like he didn't also make it. Now they are able, or let me say, Okano is able to actually save Evie when she was tied to be used for the sacrifice. So Jonathan is tasked with reading from the book in order to stop the creature. But unfortunately, Jonathan is not good at reading. So Evie is the one who tries to read the book for him, while she's also attacked by Anaxanamon's half brought back spirit. So he's able to read the parts that commands the creatures to kill Anaxanamon's half brought back spirit. Imhotep, out of anger, goes to finish Okano up, but Evie is able to quickly read from the book and then his immortality is taken. Okano then stabs him to death, and then we see that the mummy is actually killed. So we see that Benny has been greedily packing some of the gold out, and out of his greed, he ends up closing down, mistakenly pulling a lever that closed down the whole hammock. They were all able to escape except Benny, who was eaten alive by the flesh eating. So we find out that the Magi soldier also. So the movie ends with Okano and Evie kissing each other and riding onto the sands with Benny's boat. Okay, so that is it. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos.